Hashtag psychotherapy unfogged with Mark Fielding.
Hello, welcome to Series 4, Episode 16 of Hashtag Psychotherapy Unfogged. As you know, I'm Mark Fielding, psychotherapist and relationship counsellor, and your host. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by actor, comedian, and co-founder and director of Stand Up Studios. Jack has starred alongside Jack Whitehall in Bad Education and Ricky Gervais in Life's Too Short. So I'd like to welcome Jack Binstead to the show. Thanks for coming on, Jack. Good to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
And as our viewers on YouTube can see, Joe is also sitting in on this one. So yeah, nice to have you on board, Joe. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, just Jack, just to kick off, I wonder, it's a big question, I guess, to kick off with, but could you tell us a little bit around, I don't know, your relationship with mental health? I mean, what's been your kind of mental health journey over the years?
That's a good question. I feel like it's something that I've definitely avoided taking care of over the years, or perhaps neglected that there's ever been issues. Because I remember being 15 years old and landing my first ever massive acting job and just thinking, like, what have I got to lose? You know what I mean? Like, I'm a teenager. I'm not making any money right now. I'm in school. I don't have any. And I got this job and it was huge. And it took me right through to the age of about 18, 19 years old. And I couldn't have been any happier. You know what I mean? Like, I had more money than my own peers. I had a full-time job as an actor, which meant as a 19-year-old kid, I could do whatever the hell I wanted during the day.
Amazing.
In the hope that there'd be more acting work and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, I didn't have an easy ride with acting. Sort of once I came off the back of that job, I very much struggled to get myself into a new role. And by 20, I was broke, single, unhappy. I had no idea how to save money. I just knew how to receive it. I didn't go to uni because I was an actor, so I just felt like that was my only career path. I dropped out of college again because I was an actor and I had somewhere to be to film. So I hit, that was probably the first low point in my life was 20. And then as a dad, I became a dad at 22, and over the years I've had a series of different jobs to keep me afloat, and I've now gone down a route of owning my own company and starting our own disability-led company. And this year, I think for me, it's been the biggest mental health journey for me. I think like the biggest test of my life so far has been this year. I've had cancer scares, breakups. I've had just like a tough time in general, like family and what you go through with family, finances, employment. It's been a real. I'm not out of the woods yet. I've definitely been happier than I am in this very moment, but I've been worse this year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess as you kind of talk about, your life and leading up to where you are now, I mean, I guess for the young Jack, I mean, goodness me, it's almost like a charmed life, really. I mean, getting, the acting job and having more money than your peers, although possibly that had a bit of a shadow side. I mean, did that separate you off from your peers a bit? Was there jealousy? I mean, were there any negatives that came from it?
Yeah, I think, there was, because I was in school at the time, I had my school friends and I sort of then became this guy. And, everyone went from just seeing me in the playground or seeing me in the classroom to seeing me on their TVs every single night. By the buses and on billboards and so I think, there was, I definitely at that point learned that my circle was much smaller than it appeared.
Okay.
I was always very much someone who said, I would rather have 100 friends than 2 best friends, because I like the mass side to it. I like the variation to the people, and what I found in that moment was actually that mass was very much just like, and there was 2 or 3 that always stuck about, and I'm still friends with those people, 15 years later now, and obviously that shows a lot of truth behind, really knowing who you're with and who your circle is. but yeah, there definitely was, jealousy and hateful comments that came my way over the years going into college and meeting
Yeah.
people. Because I also did performing arts. And so there
Yeah.
were people that turned up like, oh my God, he's turned up. He's already on the TV. What's all this about? And then me leaving a year into a 3-year course to go and film the third series of Bad Education was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
is. But yeah, I've definitely had sort of the negative side of it. I've lost friends over the years, but then I've made new ones. So
Yeah.
swings and roundabouts, I see it. Yeah.
And then just and I'll let you come in, Jane, in a minute, but then just going kind of moving up then into your 20s, and then I guess being a bit all at sea, really. I mean, that sounds like a tough time, really, when you
With what, sorry?
well, kind of when you moved up, when the series finished, and then finding yourself a little bit kind of all at sea. I mean, I guess your life really changed at that point. I mean, you had to like start creating something else, I guess, from what you say.
Yeah, I sort of hit my first battle at that point because I was 18. I just finished the Bad Education movie. I just met someone new in a relationship wise
Yeah,
at that point, and I had zero cares in the world. I felt like I had zero cares in the world. I
yeah,
still lived at
yeah,
home. I didn't drive. My outgoing bills were minimal, which meant that I was able to party 4 or 5 times a week.
yeah,
And I was able to buy clothing that, I was probably going to wear twice. And I was eating out all the time. And I had zero care. And I didn't have anyone around me actually to tell me that, you probably shouldn't do this. I'm not putting any blame on my family or my friends, but I didn't have that, someone to go, you should probably start saving money, just in case. I never
yeah,
had that. And
yeah.
I never brought that mentality either. So,
Well,
I put
you
the
were
blame
young,
on,
weren't you? Yeah,
yeah. Um, so yeah, I remember sort of I had a few big auditions that year off the back of the movie. I had a few big auditions, and if I got them, it would have made me. And I didn't get them, and that's just part of being in the industry. You don't get everything you go for.
yeah,
And I took it on the chin. I said, "It's not a problem. It's fine. Something's going to come through." And I spent that year partying. I spent it spending money, but I also spent it with my phone in my hand, just waiting for that email
yeah,
or that call, going, "This is what you're doing next," and it never came through. And I really psychoanalyzed that. I sort of, over the years, I sort of tried to figure out what it was. And I ended up also going for a bit of a battle at that point in terms of identity, which
yeah.
I think is one of the massive downfalls of my mental health, actually, in more recently, sort of within the last year of my life, is me coming to the realization that I don't actually know who I am.
Yeah,
I sort of feel like I don't know who the real me is because the me that you see is this sort of overly confident lad who likes to be the center of attention in the middle of a joke and likes to make the whole crowd laugh, the whole room laugh. But
yeah,
when I sit back and I actually take some quiet time on board and I reflect, I sort of go, you know what? I don't. That's a lot of effort that is for me to be that guy. It's not natural. I am trying to be that person.
yeah,
But I then sort of go, well, if that's not me, who am I? And I can't give you an answer because I don't feel like I know anymore. And that's me having to be that guy.
yeah, yeah.
I've had to keep up a
Totally.
persona in the years. You go out with friends, you go out to all these parties and whatnot, and they go, "Oh my God, you're that guy on TV," and then you've got to be the guy that they see on TV.
Yeah, yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Well, you don't
yeah.
have to, but that's the trap. You feel that you have to be who they
Definitely.
want you to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You lose yourself over the years.
yeah. Did you want to come in, Joe?
yeah, sure. I just wanted to ask, in terms of like, because you were a young actor, did you think there was much support in terms of like what to expect once something like your big gig, like Bad Education, had finished, like what to expect and how to deal with it?
No, there was nothing of the sort, really. I mean, when I guess there was, no one wants anything to come to an end like a project like that. Everyone wanted to continue and have another series and
Yeah,
another
yeah, yeah,
movie. And I think we definitely knew at the end of the Bad Education movie, the first one, that we wasn't going to do a second movie. It just felt wrong to continue going, a bit like an in-betweeners moment. We didn't want to kill it with a second movie just for the
yeah,
sake of a wage.
yeah, yeah,
And we knew that our time was done. And, that was sad. It was definitely like, a little bit of an end of an era because we'd broken every comedy record. We were the most viewed BBC comedy. And how hard that hit. It was actually, last year where we came back with a 10-year reunion. How many views that got and how well received that was. It really sort of rung true that this was a huge project. But
yeah, totally.
no, I don't remember there ever being sort of like a here's the next step sort of thing, or here's what to expect. It was very much just chucking you back into your ordinary life, whatever that is, and then continue in the same. Your agent calls you up and says, here's an audition, or you need to do a self-tape for this. I was just waiting for that and never got it. And then just continuously battling with myself, though. I had this, I think the identity issue started at that point because I wanted to be this bearded, tattooed Viking, which is what I am today as an adult. But back then, I had this big flock of hair and I had no beard and I was a little bit slimmer. And I started getting tattoos because I had the money to do so. And I'd got them in places where you couldn't see them. And then I just thought, you know what, screw it. And I started getting tattoos on my arms and my hands and my fingers. And my agent was continuously battling with me, and my mother was continuously going, you're ruining your life, and I'm going, this is who I want to be, though. I want to be a tattooed person. It's how I want people to view me as, he's cool, he's got tattoos.
Yeah.
So on more than one occasion, I proved my agent and my mother wrong in the sense that I got these tattoos and still had acting work to do. It wasn't a problem. Times change, they're more accepting of tattoos and whatnot.
Definitely, yeah.
But I definitely had this, I mean, that was one of the big reasons why I stopped getting as much acting work. It was because I was no longer this blank canvas that you could mold me into whatever character you were writing.
Yeah.
I now only fit a small criteria of, you want to go chew your toes? Yeah, I know the guy. I limited myself. I knew that I was doing that, but I felt I had to do that for my own sake, really.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking, Jack. Really, I mean, just tying in what you were saying earlier. I mean, I guess an identity was created for you, and I guess, arguably even now, I mean, because of the expectation of other people, it's really difficult to stop being that person. So I guess with the tattoos and the beard, this is you trying to step out of that, isn't it, and just find yourself.
I think you're right in saying that a character was created for me. I don't think I ever sort of had a moment where I went, "This is who I want to be" or how I want to come across.
No,
if you were in the street and you met Tobin Bell from Saw, you wouldn't expect him to sort of like tap dance and crack a few jokes. You'd expect him to have this sort of Saw-like, very dark persona because he's keeping that up.
Yeah.
That's where you know him from. So I was blindly chucked into this world of acting. It wasn't anything I ever wanted to do. I never wanted to be an actor in my life. It just sort of happened, and a great opportunity. Why not? And but now I had to be this funny guy because I was in a comedy, and I had to be that attitude-filled, cheeky chap because that's who Remdog was.
Yeah,
and and I was also at a point in my life where I was lapping this up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
I was 18, 19 years old. I became single and I was like, hell, ladies, who am I? It was one of those. It was like, shit, dude, I'm Jack fucking Binstead. I was like, I was like, I'm that guy, and people saw me in the same way. So I lapped up at that point in my life, and I think that's also where I lost friends because they sort of saw this side to me that they didn't enjoy. And I didn't really notice myself being that person. I just thought I was being the confident, cocky person they wanted me to be, so it was almost like a trap that I had set for myself.
Yeah.
But that was that's probably where that all came from.
Yeah, and just with one question, I'd let you come in, Joe, in a minute. But the element of it being a trap, I mean, I really connect with that. So now you're in a position in your life. I mean, we'll talk about kind of what you're doing and the business that you set up in a minute. But I guess now you're in a place where you're starting to reconnect with maybe less with the persona and trying to rediscover who Jack Binstead is underneath that.
Yeah, that's I've had some real battles this year.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with a story called The Chinese Farmer?
I may be going to say a bit of it.
Well, I went through a real tough time at the start of the year, and a lot of people around me, people who like lived across the world, they knew that I wasn't being me, even through social media. I just
Yeah.
wasn't. And one guy said, "What's up?" And I said, like, I'm going through this at the moment. I'm a bit down. I was about 400 miles from home I was, away doing a pool tournament. And he said, "Oh, this isn't you, man. This isn't the guy that I once met." And I said, "I don't know what to do." And he said, "Listen to this tape." And he sent me a link to this recording. And I'll tell you it. And I swear to God, it changed my life. It literally changed my life. And it's something that I literally have to think about on a daily basis in order to have the new mentality that I want to have in order to keep. But you got a Chinese farmer and his son. Okay, we're talking maybe 800 years ago. They're turnip farmers. Okay, and they live on this plot of land and they grow the turnips, and they don't own the land. So whatever they make, they got to pay rent on. They got to pay rent to live there, and they make a very small percentage of what they actually do. The old man, he's now too old to farm the land, so the son's got to do it. And he's got a workhorse. So every single day he goes out on the land and he ploughs the turnips, and the horse does all the rest of the work. And one day this horse jumps over the gate and it runs off the hills. And he turns around to his dad and he says, "Dad, this is a nightmare. Without the horse, I can't do the farm work." I said, "This is a nightmare." He goes, "You know what, son? It might be a nightmare, but it might not be either." The son's thinking, this guy's out for lunch. Like, what's he on about?
Yeah.
A few days later, he sat out on the porch. He's starving, hungry. He's got nothing to do. He hears this thunderous noise coming from the hills. As he looks up, he sees the workhorse running back down towards the farm with 50 wild stallions behind it. And he opens the gate and he lets them into the land. And he closes it and he goes up to his dad. He goes, "Dad, this is a miracle. This is to get turnip farming. We're in the horse trade business. We're rich." And he goes, "You know what, son? It might be a miracle, but it might not be." He doesn't know what he means. He's like, how can you not see? So the son's out on the land and he's domesticating these horses for sale. Okay, and he's going one by one and it's all going well. But it gets to this one horse and this one horse just isn't playing ball. Right. And it rears up and it kicks him in the leg, shatters his shit, completely breaks his leg. Right. And his dad's got to somehow drag him into this hut and put him on a chair. And he goes, "Dad, this is a nightmare." He goes, "If I can't walk, I can't move, and I can't domesticate these horses. And if we can't do that, then we got to farm the land. And I can't do any of that with one leg, and you're too old. This is a nightmare, Dad. This might be the end of us." And he goes, "You know what, son? This might be the end of us. This is a nightmare. But also it may not be."
Mm.
So another few days go by, and the son's in the middle of pain, and they hear this thunderous noise again coming from the hills. 5,000 samurai soldiers on horseback come riding down towards this hut. And the leader of this army gets off and he walks into the hut. He looks at the dad. He looks at the son. And he goes, "We need your son to join the army. We're going off to fight the Maui army and we need every single person that we can." And he looks at his son and he goes, "Look, you can't have him. His leg is bust up. He can't walk. He can't get on a horse. There's no way that you can have him." And he goes, "Yeah, you know what? Fair enough. We'll allow this one." And he gets back on his horse and that 5,000 army right off to their death against the Maui army. All 5,000 die. And I remember hearing this about 1 in the morning on a beach, about 400 miles from home. And I was like, oh my God, if all of that hadn't happened in the order that it had happened, he'd have died.
Yeah.
That horse hadn't kicked, they'd have gone to fight in the war. And if the horse hadn't ran away and left them hungry, he wouldn't have brought 50 back. And it's one of those things, isn't it? I sort of this year have had to accept that I am in the position I'm in because I'm meant to be in this position.
Yeah.
I'm meant to go through these hardships in order to realize and appreciate life. I was I went through a real tough time the first couple of months. And then I went off to Vegas in April and I had a great time. Me and the co-founder of my company, we were filming, having a great time. I loved Vegas. And then I came back with this potential cancerous tumor, which they discovered whilst I was out there. And that set me right back. I was like, oh shit, I got cancer. I then had 2 months of being prodded, poked, and tested for cancer. And then me having to go, no, I'm meant to be in this position. And it's so hard to do, isn't it? When you sort of, how am I meant to accept that I'm meant to potentially have cancer right now? Why am I meant to be in this scenario? Unfortunately, I find out that what I have is a non-cancerous tumor, and I don't have to worry about it growing into it being cancerous. It's benign and it's non-cancerous. Yeah. And I work in this job. I was working in customer service for this job, and I absolutely hated it. I didn't like the people I worked with. I didn't like anything, and I resigned, quit, and I said, you know what, life's too short for this, you know, and I just left, and I had no money to fall back on, you know, single father, living at home still, had no money to fall back on. I quit. And the last 2 months have been a real struggle because I've had no money. I've really been trying to find the money. I had a little acting job, and I've sold some watches that I bought over the years. And you know, I'm trying to stay afloat right now, you know, and I'm having to tell myself again, you know, Chinese farmer, you're meant to be here right now. Maybe you've got to experience the lows in order to really appreciate the highs, and vice versa. And that's what's coming. But I have to convince myself of that to keep myself going.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I guess he's putting it in context. Joe, did you want to come in?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to go back, like, if you don't mind, I just wanted to go back to the persona thing. It kind of echoes a documentary I watched. I don't know if you've heard of the YouTuber Bazinga from the Sidemen. He did a documentary, and he's like so known for his laugh and being this joyful person and happy. And in this documentary, he talks about how he was struggling because like his mum had been unwell. His dad left when he was a child. Then he had this new dad, and this dad left as well. And then his mum got diagnosed with cancer, and then he was turning to drinking and smoking and stuff. And he got to this point where he felt like he wanted to like end his life. Which like he had this whole persona, like everyone expected him to be this happy-go-lucky person, known for his laugh. It just reminded me of that, like
I think it's way more. I think it's way more common for people who are sort of in the limelight and have social media and whatnot to actually be in the scenario that me and Bazinga are in, you know. But it's you know, it is interesting, and I feel like me and Bazinga would both come back to you right now with the same answers. I'll call him for you and find out. I know him really well, but I feel like we both would have the same answer here in the sense that, despite the fact we know that this is a persona and that we are, you know, maintaining a character, if you then you then said, Jack, you know, are you coming out tonight? All the boys are out and we're bringing a couple of girls and whatnot. We're going to go for drinks. And I go, I'll come. Yeah. And the second I see them, I'm like, right, persona on. And it's not even like you know, even after having a 20-minute conversation with myself in the mirror about not wanting to be that guy anymore, as soon as I'm in that scenario, I'm in. And I can't turn it off, you know, because I don't know what I would do or how I would be or what I would say or what they would say if I just decided to go sit in the corner of the room and just not talk to anyone. Right. Which is probably a really, really extreme version of what I shouldn't do. You know, I mean, no one's just going to go sit in the corner room and not do anything. So that's obviously not what the non-persona version of me would do. But what would he do then? I can't tell you.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's difficult to, you know, to connect. I mean, just bringing in what you were saying about the cancer scare is like, goodness me. I mean, that alone, Joe, I mean, that is massive. And talk about changing perspective on life. I mean, thank goodness it wasn't, you know, something that was going to grow, but you didn't know that at first, did you?
No, and again, it was probably the bit I do apologize because I refer to Chinese farmer about every other sentence in my life nowadays. I really have to. Am I going to get it tattooed on me? But again, it was one of the biggest Chinese farmer moments for me because I was in Vegas and I woke up with kidney stones. That's what it was. I woke up and I was trying to wee and I couldn't wee, and for like half a day I was really trying to pee. I was trying to carry on with my day, and I got to the point where I was keeling over with kidney pains, and I had to take myself off to the emergency room.
Yeah,
and had a CT scan, and they put all this dye in me, and they look and they said, no, you've got kidney stones, dude. It's at the end of the tube, though, so you're going to pass it pretty soon. He said, you are aware that you've got a 4-centimeter tumor on your liver? And I said, no.
What a moment.
No. And they were like, yeah, dude, you have a raised, very angry, it's like a Christmas tree here, tumor on your liver. And they said, you've also got a hernia in your stomach, but we'll leave that one for the time being. And I've got a hiatal hernia in my stomach, which means I get a lot of acid reflux, and I get full quite quickly when it comes to eating. But back to the tumor, they said, you know, you've got this going on. They said, when you get out, you've got to get yourself looked at. And I had scans, I had blood tests, and there definitely was something raised, like an enzyme that was
Yeah,
raised in my
yeah,
liver.
yeah.
And then I had an ultrasound, and they said it's grown. And I'm like, it's definitely cancer. It's grown. Come on. It went from 4 centimeters to 7 centimeters in the space of about, well, in the space of about 5 to 6 weeks from me finding it.
Oh,
How
wow.
long I've had it prior to knowing it was,
Yeah,
there, I don't know. But it'd grown.
yeah.
And
Terrifying.
then,
Terrifying.
yeah, everabsolutely.
Yeah,
Every single day. And thankfully, my mother works in a medical environment, so a private medical environment, so she was able to get some second opinions, and I was able to get answers in relation to what this could be and what it might be quicker than the NHS were giving them to me. So, for peace of mind, I was receiving these answers
yeah.
that were positive in the sense that I have something called FNH, which is focal nodular hyperplasia. It's a mass or a tumor that you get. They don't know why you get it. They can't tell you that. But they are non-cancerous benign tumors. So even if it was to stay in me, I've never had it taken out. It's still there now. I have an appointment at some point in the next month or two, I guess,
Yeah.
just to keep an eye on it. But there's no need to remove it because it can never become cancerous.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean, which is great. But I mean, what a life-changing moment. I mean,
yeah,
if ever there is a moment to
yeah.
stop, take a breath, and then look at your life, I mean, that is the moment right there, isn't it? Yeah,
I
Yeah,
totally agree.
it's interesting as well, isn't it? I think in that moment, it's very much that fight or flight, isn't it? And
yeah,
had it been cancer, it would have been a lot, obviously, a lot more of a heart wrenching moment and decision to what do I do next, especially as a young father. That was my main worry, my main upset every single day was leaving
yeah.
behind my
Of
daughter and
course.
her
Yeah,
growing up, not really knowing me. She's only 4 years old. Um, so that I think that was my biggest win was when I found out I didn't have it. Was like,
yeah,
I get to be a dad. I get to be a dad still. That's my favorite thing in life is my daughter. Um, but yeah, it was tough. It was very, very tough to sort of have to accept that might be a scenario. That might be the case. And you go through a lot, don't you? Like, people make their own minds up on what is important to them. I smoke, I drink. I might have cancer. I didn't. I stopped drinking during that process, but I
yeah,
still smoke cigarettes.
yeah,
Um, and I find out that I don't have cancer, and I celebrated with a cigarette. And then my life changing, the choices that I wanted to change in my life, it wasn't I'm going to quit smoking. It was I'm going to quit my job. And it's interesting, isn't it, how people respond in that moment. For me, it was like,
definitely.
wow, life's too short. I'm not going to sit behind a desk for a job that I don't like.
Yeah,
Other people would be like, yeah, well, I got to pay rent, but I will give up smoking. So I think and I guess if
yeah,
you were, as someone in your position who does what you do for a living, if you were to read into that, I'm sure you could write a book out of that because that really is, like the thought
yeah,
process behind the choices you make
yeah.
really do say a lot about who you are.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Definitely.
I agree. I agree with you when it changes your perspective on life because like my partner was diagnosed with cancer last year and it's definitely like turned our life upside down because last year was like a really bad year. We'd had two losses and then my partner got cancer.
Right.
Like she's nearing the end of her treatment now and it's positive, which is good, but like it just flips your world upside down. Like oh my God, all this stuff we had planned, will it still happen? What do we do if this scenario happens, if that scenario happens? So like
Mm.
I'm definitely, even though I'm not the one that's had cancer, I'm definitely taking opportunities when they come. And she's the same, like any opportunity, she's learning to say yes to more things. Like I've told her to, like, if she wants to be, she can be more she can be selfish if it means that she's happy.
Yeah.
Like we only moved last year because like we didn't have much room in our house, and um her mum came and helped her out us out with everything, with appointments and everything, and she's wanted to move back towards her family because she's realized how like valuable life can be when stuff like that happens. So I've told her like if you want to move back, I'm only going to my job one day into work 1 day a week because I'm working from home. Like just small stuff like that. Like it
Yeah.
really does, and it makes you want to take opportunities when they come.
Yeah, like time stops, doesn't it? And then just as I mean, just as you both saying, I guess these are moments when people evaluate their lives and make big life decisions. I mean, it's so easy to go through life on automatic pilot, and it. Lots of people do it, don't they? You just go through life, automatic pilot, job you hate, blah blah blah. But when something like that happens, I think you have a look at your life and think, hold on a second, I need to be happy here. I need to be doing things that are meaningful, and and everyone kind of reacts differently. I mean, I'm going to move around. I'm conscious of the time, Jack. I mean, I want to ask you about stand-up studios. Could you say a bit more about? I mean, because this is where you are currently, isn't it?
Yeah, so Stand Up Studios is a disability-led production company.
Yeah.
Myself and my co-founder Andy Mills, we both have the disability brittle bones. We've both predominantly. I've been a wheelchair user all my life. He's predominantly been a wheelchair user most of his life. Different severities. He's been able to walk a lot more than I have over the years, but we're both wheelchair users now. Yeah, do you know what it was? It was very random. We're both people I feel who are in similar places in our lives where we do what we do and we are who we are, but it's exhausting being who we are because I think on top of being that guy on TV, I've also had to battle with being that disabled guy. And I'm way too proud of a person for you to see me in any way less than the guy that you think is fucking great who can walk. Right. And that's a battle that I have in my own head. I don't need to be that person to someone I don't know, but I will be that person every damn time.
Yeah.
And so I've had to do that as well as be that character that they want. Right.
Yeah.
He hasn't had that TV side of things, but he definitely has had that disability one where he's also that funny man. He's that clever guy. He is such a flirt, and he does so well off of it as well. And being these guys in wheelchairs, we go out drinking, we get a lot of attention from females, and he's very much that guy, and we sort of both got to a point. We booked Vegas. Vegas was the first project. We booked Vegas as mates and said, let's go on a holiday together because we haven't had one in about 8 years together. And let's go to Vegas and let's find out how long we should be in Vegas for and then double it, right? And so we found out 5 days is about a good length of time. So we did 10. And it then became a little bit of a project. We had a few drinks one day and we said, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we filmed the whole holiday? 2 lads from England in Vegas in wheelchairs. What can go wrong, And so we developed this idea. We had another drink. And by the end of this sort of mini session that we had in Waterloo, we'd come up with the idea to do a 2-hour feature-length mockumentary that we would sell to all major platforms. And we came up with this incredibly far-fetched plan that we were not capable of doing. And we never actually then dropped the idea. We just kept talking about it and kept going, this would be fun, this would be good. And the more I spoke about these projects, going to Vegas, 2 lads in wheelchairs, partying, pool parties, access, how does a guy in a wheelchair get on a plane? So there's educational and entertainment. There's a lot going into it.
Yeah.
The more we spoke about it, the more people wanted to actually see it and they wanted to know more about the project and what we were doing. And we ended up building contacts in Vegas. And this was 4 months before we even went. And the only thing we struggled with was finances. We didn't have enough money to actually have a real cameraman, and we didn't have enough, money to bring someone else with us. So we were doing it off of our own cameras. We had our own handheld cameras. We had a few GoPros. We had some mics on top of the cameras. And so we had a fairly decent setup. But we didn't have big over-the-shoulder cameras following us. That's what we really needed. And so we went and we filmed this project, and we realized about halfway through that actually this was going to be more of a concept piece. We probably have enough footage to go and do a massive trailer and it'd be epic while we're at it, and use that as a platform to sort of then go to distribution, Netflix, Amazon, whoever, and go, this is what we did with no money, and look how good this is. Imagine you give us a team of £500,000, what we could do in any other country. And I think there's quite a lot of people would want to see that. How do 2 guys in wheelchairs travel, party, go to places? What's that like? So we had that project, and in the midst of it sort of becoming a bigger thing, and us building contacts in the world of production, it was then a conversation of like, wow, do you know what? We could really do this one day. We could make this work. And that's when we came up with the idea to start a production company, because we had other ideas in mind. I had ideas for TV series that I wanted to write. He had ideas for series he wanted to write. We both knew that we wanted to start our own podcast, which we started doing. And then just other little bits that we came up with. You know, we've done a short movie, which we filmed to try and get into international film festivals for next year. So just little projects here and there that we can try and chuck out there as a loose, you know, opportunity for us to sort of, you know, go onwards. I'm sort of at the end stage right now of creating a pilot episode for a new psychological drama that I've created. Very, very dark, very, very unlike anything I've ever worked on in my life. I've always been that comedy guy, but I know that I can write dark. So I wrote the pilot with a team. I've got a team of 3 other writers that I've employed across this year, and we've all wrote it together. So it's very dark. It's very, very cool. It's a lot of undercover organizations, and detectives, and murder, and AI technology all being thrown into one series. And so we have had a bite from Amazon at this point, where they would be interested in having a meeting to read it. You know, hopefully they like it, and then it can become a series. The podcast is a bit of a slow one for us. It's very much a lads chat. It's called Blow Your Load. Very rude.
Yeah, great title.
Yeah, so we've had I think we've had 5 episodes out on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube currently. We've got a 6th one to come out in a few weeks. My co-founder's currently in the Philippines with his missus, so he's gonna return, and we're gonna post a new one. But yeah, you know, I think the future of it is very unknown, because you know, we're not making any money as a company right now, and I, you know, need to work to make money. So I actually start a new job working within the world of sales in a few weeks' time, which is just completely unrelated to production, completely unrelated to acting. It's for a production company, actually, so it's not really that far off of anything. But I'm not the star, or I'm not the owner. I'm not the, you know, I'm the salesman. You know, I need to have a job in order to feed my daughter, and I need to pay my bills, and I need to see friends and socialize, and put fuel in the car, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. And I'm okay with that, you know, but it does mean that time wise, you know, we don't have any time now Monday to Friday to go do podcast episodes. And I have my daughter on weekends, so how we go moving forward, I don't know. But you know, we've got the psychological drama project. We've got the podcast started, and then I know that Andy's also writing his own show at the same time. So he's writing that with another guy in a wheelchair from Scotland. So I'm not really involved in that project. But yeah.
I mean, did you want to?
Same boat. Yeah, I do filmmaking as well. As we've spoke about on LinkedIn, and I had to find full-time work because I wasn't making any money from the film. Just finished my first fictional short film's just been completed, and we've just entered like the festival circuit. So yeah, I know what you mean about, like, it's hard, especially when you're just starting out.
Yeah, we came into this with no idea. I mean, literally, we started an entire company over about 5 whiskies, you know, and it was like, it wasn't like we'd planned for a long time, and it wasn't anything that we had material already stacked up to go into. It was very spare at the moment. And, you know, sometimes that works. Do you know what I mean? You know, how quick was the formula for Facebook actually created? It was a moment's thought. You know, it was, oh shit, if I've done this, then we can do this, and then you develop from there, don't you? It then becomes bigger. But the actual basic concept behind it took 2 seconds to think of. And sometimes that can work. You know, and I think that we want to provide a future for disabled boys and girls, where, you know, they go, holy shit, if they can do it, we can do it. You know, and that's why we're disability led. We definitely would never turn away somebody from our company because they aren't disabled. That's ridiculous. Of course not. But right now, everybody that is employed within our company has some level of disability, whether it's they're in a wheelchair like me and Andy, or they have, autism or ADHD or something along those lines.
Fantastic.
Everyone who works for us has something like that currently, and
Yeah.
it's providing opportunities. I think if we could get the company to the big point, and we can have films going, and we can have TV series going, and we really have our foot through the door, then I'd like to use it as an opportunity to give that guy with Down syndrome his dream job of being behind the camera, or that girl who's an amputee wants to be a makeup artist. Well, then you can do that within my production company, because that's what we're all about. So I think that's where I want to get to when we can finally sort of get our foot in the door. Is that would be a great opportunity for us.
I mean, what a fantastic prospect, really, and so inclusive. I mean, Joe and I used to we met. We used to work for the Boat Beating company. Yeah, which was a drama company for adults with learning difficulties, and we used to put on productions. And there's so much talent there, But I mean, adults with learning difficulties. There's so much negativity and stereotype. I mean, we could talk forever about it. I mean, I'm conscious of the time and not keeping you too long, Jack, but I wanted to ask you, and this is probably a massive question, at the end, but I mean, in terms of the industry and in terms of general life, I mean, have you experienced much kind of ableism, like in your life, discrimination through being a wheelchair user?
I feel like the short answer is no, and it's a really. I suppose it's quite a boring answer, isn't it? Because you'd want someone to say yes, and then there's a big discussion about why and what happened. But I have such a strong persona and such a strong loud mouthy character, right? That people don't really go as far as discriminating me, because they know I'm gonna just absolutely ruin them for it themselves. I don't necessarily have this hard man persona about me, but if I was to swing, it would hurt. I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover, but in a scenario where what I'm saying, I'm a strong dude, and that's very obvious. If you saw me, I'm very, very wide. And I think I've had it before where in a pub scenario, or someone's making a joke about the wheelchair, or laughing about something, and I've heard it, and I've just turned my wheelchair around to face them and just stared at them, and they've just gone, "Oh shit," because they've sort of gone, sorry, dude, like I didn't, and suddenly you're backing away, in those scenarios where you either really, really mean what you're doing, or you aren't afraid of that person, then you would just continue and go, well, this is what I meant, mate. So I don't feel like I've experienced too much of it, because I have that sort of very outlandish behavior,
strong personality. You have a very strong.
I think I think if you were to do a study on it, and you were to look at statistics of people that have gone through discrimination and ableism and that sort of thing, and you categorize them on whether they were an introvert or an extrovert, you would see that maybe 80% of those people are introverts.
Yeah, I see what you mean. No, I've never really thought about it like that. Yeah, but I see what you mean.
It's because someone like me would turn around in the face of discrimination and throw it right back at them. I'm happy to, cause a scene. I'm happy to be loud about it. I'm happy to be that lad, and again, how much of that is persona and how much of that is the real me? But what I have to accept is that if I don't know who the real me is, then what other choice do I have but to continue being a persona and just calling it my own?
Yeah.
So in those scenarios, I am very much like, what do you want, mate? What do you say? And it's like that, that's my friends. That's where I come from. That's my upbringing. It's very much like, what, and so I carry that on regardless of being in a wheelchair or not.
Yeah.
And somebody who is much more of an introvert and is sort of maybe not out in social scenarios as often as I am, or doesn't go to the pub drinking with friends, is very much happy at home with a book, a comic book, or video games or whatever. In the face of discrimination, ableism would sort of just cower, not cower, but crumble and just sort of go into a pit of like, what do I say? I'm being attacked, and and that's how they deal with it. And I can't turn around and say, that's the wrong way of dealing with it, because everybody has to deal with things in their own way. That might be the really healthy way for them to deal with it, and that's absolutely fine then. But I can only talk on behalf of myself, and I know that in those scenarios, I'm very much like a rhino. I'm like, coming in, and let's go. I don't mean fighting. I mean the attitude. I mean, like, let's go.
Yeah.
You want to bring up legs. Let's talk about yours. and then it's just a bit of a banter, isn't it? It's I turn everything into humour because it's the easiest thing to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I haven't really. I'll be honest. I couldn't think of a scenario where I've had it. I'll be honest. I really, really can't think of one on the spot. But I've had hateful comments over the years. I get a lot of looks. I've had it before where I've been out with me and my daughter's mother were separated about 3 years ago now. But I've been out with her before when we were still in a relationship, holding hands or whatever, and they sort of go, "Oh, how's your sister?" And it could be your girlfriend, could it? Because you're in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Little things like that. I've had comments like that. I think the future's different for the younger generation. My daughter's disabled too, and fortunately, medicine's come such a long way. She'll probably never need a wheelchair, but she has obviously grown up with a disabled dad, and she very much understands the wheelchair. And I hear it a lot when I pick her up from nursery. She's walking down the corridor, or I go into the classroom to get her, and I hear other kids, and they go, "That's Daisy's daddy," and then they sort of go, "Oh, what's that?" And then one kid will be like, "That's a wheelchair," because they've officially changed W in the kids' alphabet. W is wheelchair now. We're on whale or whatever I think it was, but it's officially now wheelchair, and kids are learning about it.
It's
Kids
good.
are learning that it isn't. We are no different. And they're just sort of, it's a wheelchair, and then there's no more on it because they're just like, okay, it's like another pair of shoes, wheelchair shoes, whatever. It's such a simple thing nowadays, and that's exactly where it needs to be in order to be less discrimination down the line.
Yeah. I mean, thanks, Jack. I mean, that's. I mean, I could literally talk to you for another hour, Jack, but we can't take any more of your time. Is there anything that we haven't asked you, Jack, that you'd like to say just at the end?
No, I mean, I'll be honest with you, mate. I've still got a good 10 minutes. I sort of thought it was take an hour. So if you want to ask questions for 10 more minutes, I'm happy. I'm fine with it.
Okay. Well, let's take that opportunity then. Do you want to ask anything, Joe? Do you want to come back in?
So I think he's answered a lot of my questions. One of my questions would be like, were your co-stars and stuff supportive when it came to being in the industry for stuff like Bad Education and Life's Too Short? Were they supportive with your career, and did they give you any sort of guidance?
Well, with Life's Too Short, that was my first ever acting job, and I was only about I must have only been about 12 or 13 years old at the time, and I was within arm's reach of Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, Warwick Davis, and Johnny Depp knocking about somewhere, and I don't think I really knew what I was doing, to be honest with you. It was a bit of a blur, I knew what I had to do. It was very, very funny. The clip that I'm involved in is hilarious and still gets sent to me to this very day by random people all over the world. And I don't think I really took it in. I don't think I really appreciated it. I was just very much like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to turn up and have a laugh. But with Bad Education, yeah, it's a lot more serious. And for a good few of us in that cast, this was again our first big acting job.
Yeah.
So in terms of support, I think everyone was very much in a bit of a free for all. It was very much like, we're going to go at our own pace, and we're going to learn, and we're going to strive, and we're going to do everything. And we were a close unit. We were all good friends, but I definitely felt the divide for myself because I was the youngest. So I was 15, and I think there's a couple of them that were 17. There was one that was 19. There was one that was 21. Then there was two that were 25 plus. And so I'm this 15-year-old. There's a good age gap there, isn't there? And I very much got treated like I was the younger one, because I still had to go through school as well. So I'm filming Bad Education I'm also an athlete at this point, still in Series 1.
Yeah.
So I'm having to go to filming and film for 8 or 9 hours. In those 8 or 9 hours, do 3 hours of tutoring for my GCSEs, then leave the filming and go to the racing track and train for 2 hours. And it absolutely killed me. And it was the entire reason that I gave up athletics, was because I thought, acting is the way forward for me, because I'm making money, firstly.
Yeah.
It's way more fun. There's no blood, sweat, and tears unless I'm being asked to bleed sweat or do tears. And it's an easier life for me. So yeah, I did get support. Everyone was very nice. I never got treated badly or anything like that in the industry. But I did feel like I got treated like I'm the younger one, which I was. So, can't really, yeah. But what I was going to say, back to the whole Chinese farmer thing I was mentioning to you
Yeah.
earlier.
Yeah.
That the whole year of me doing this, the last few weeks for me, personally speaking, have been really, really tough. And I've hit a low point. And I've told friends I've had this low point. And what I did was I started blogging. I made a WordPress, right? And I started blogging about how I felt. And it really helped to blog it, right? And I actually posted these blogs on my social media so everyone in the world could read it. And I had quite a few people come back to me like, "Oh my God, this is exactly how I feel."
Yeah. That doesn't
I just
surprise
don't
me
know
at
how
all.
I just don't know how to write it, and you've done
Yeah.
it for me.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I said, I'm gonna keep this up. I said, I'm gonna keep this up. And I was presented about 2 weeks ago with a new opportunity in my life, which is paddle tennis. I don't know if you've heard of paddle tennis.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit like
I have.
it's a
Yeah.
bit like tennis meets squash,
Yeah.
right? It's played in a glass cage. I got presented with the opportunity to start playing paddle, wheelchair paddle, and I'm now 2 weeks into this journey, and I'm looking to create England's first wheelchair GB team for it.
How
wow.
So
fantastic.
I've decided to go back into full-time training.
Yeah.
And I've got a competition this weekend. I've got a training session tomorrow. But the idea here is that I'm the driving force behind creating this new wheelchair sport, and then building a team, and then going out to all the existing countries where they have a team and competing.
Great. Yeah.
And instantly, it was ridiculous. Okay, but I had that first training session. I had such fun in that hour, right, that I went home a different man. I then had 6 training sessions over the next week, right, and I read my blog and didn't even understand what I wrote.
Yeah. I mean,
Right?
there's something just to pick up. It's multi-layered, I think, but just on a fundamental level, there is something really, really, I think, helpful about exercise and mental health. I mean, there's a stack of research, more and more stuff coming out every day saying that physical exercise, whether that be cardio or weight-bearing exercise, best thing for mental health, often better than medication. So it doesn't really surprise me that, you were in a low period and then you went and you did the physical exercise. And of course, it's not just that, it's everything that you just said, that your mood came up. I mean, it is the best thing for mental health. So it doesn't really surprise me.
I really think it's a chain effect, isn't it? It's a real chain effect. And again, to me, this screams Chinese farmer. But I was at this low point. I'm looking for a job at the same time. I start playing paddle. My entire mood changes. I go for a job interview and I find out I get it the next day. After 2 months of being turned down, I had a sales job interview for an electric vehicle charging company 3 weeks ago. Didn't get it, right? They thought I was great, but didn't get it, right? Start playing paddle. I'm 4 or 5 sessions in, have this job interview. I've got it in the next day, right? How different a person was I between those 2 interviews, knowing that I've now started doing this and this is me. Had I not gone and taken up this opportunity to play paddle, I wouldn't have got this job. I wouldn't be starting my new job on a September 18th. I then wouldn't have money in November for my daughter's birthday. It's a chain effect, isn't it? It's that if the bloody horse hadn't run away, I wouldn't have got 50 more. So it's that, isn't it? And I reckon if you guys, honestly, if anyone on this earth just took a moment and understood Chinese farmer and then thought about it, It sort of backs off the whole black swan concept of like you leaving your house 5 minutes later than normal and
Yeah,
getting hit by a car. Well, if you just hadn't have had that extra slice of toast, that wouldn't have happened,
yeah,
because you'd have been
Yeah.
on time, and it's very much like that, isn't it? And you at that
yeah,
point you just have to accept, yeah, but I'm meant to be this person, you
yeah,
know.
Yeah.
You see that a lot with athletes who are disabled. They sort of go, oh man, why did I decide to just jump into that shallow pool and break my neck? And then 10
yeah,
years later, so much rehab, so much mental health that going on there, they win their first Paralympic medal. And before they jumped into that pool, they were partying, drinking in
yeah,
uni 4 or 5 times a week, had no clear future, and
Yeah.
now they're a Paralympian. They go, fuck, man, I was meant to break my neck, and it's such
Yeah.
a bizarre thing to think about, isn't
yeah,
it? That was meant to happen.
definitely.
But
Yeah,
it's at the end of the day, it's a coping mechanism as well, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
you sort of going, I need to give myself a sense of purpose behind where I am in order for me to actually accept that I'm here and be happy about it,
yeah,
Yeah.
for
If
sure. I
you
mean,
just sort of
yeah,
go, oh, am I meant to be here? Oh, all right then. You
yeah,
sort of just go, that's not you accepting it. That's you just sort of going, wow, bollocks. And
Yeah.
that's what I've done so many times in my life. I've been that guy who
Yeah.
just, bollocks,
Yeah.
and done nothing about it, you
yeah.
know.
I mean,
So,
finding meaning, sliding doors moments, like synchronicity. I mean, yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. I mean, and finding meaning, isn't it? And
yeah,
putting everything into a context and finding meaning through it, I think is so important, isn't it? Just kind of really
Yeah.
zooming out. And I mean, and that's the story of the farmer is that, isn't it? It's just really zooming out and not really focusing on the one thing, just looking at the wider concept. I mean, Jack,
yeah,
it's been a brilliant interview, and it's been
Yeah.
really nice to meet you. Thank you so much for coming
thank
on.
you.
Thank you.
I mean, is there anything you want to say just as we finish, Jack? Is there anything you want to say that we've not given you the opportunity to?
No, not at all. I mean,
No.
I would just urge, all of your listeners and yourselves to really sort of go and listen to that Chinese farmer story because it
Yeah,
really will. It may not be something that you need right now. You might be at a really great point in your life, and you've got your new boyfriend or girlfriend, you got your new job, you got your new car, and finally you booked your holiday for next year.
yeah,
But it's one of those ones that you never know when you might need it, and it's
yeah,
great to have stored away for a later date.
Yeah.
Um, the best version of that story that I've ever heard was you can Google it. It's on YouTube, and it's Shia LaBeouf, and he talks about the Chinese farmer story on a podcast with another guy, famous actor. I can't remember his
yeah,
name. Um, he tells it in such a Shia LaBeouf way, right? But it's great. It's such a modernized version of the original fable that came out many, 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 many hundreds of years ago. And he sort of added a little bit more detail into it, which is the version I've given you, and it makes it a lot more interesting to listen to. But give that a listen to, right? Let him explain it to you the way he did, because I heard it from him,
okay,
and and he talks about it because he went through a messy divorce.
yeah,
That's where he was at. He was going through a messy divorce, and he, was this guy, and perhaps a drinker, perhaps violent, and that's the way he dealt with things. And he got told to listen to this tape, and he talks about listening to that tape, and he talks about going home after listening to that tape to his wife, who's kicking all his things out of the house and telling him to get in the car, and he just goes, "Okay, I will." And he
yeah,
accepts it and he moves on, and now he's happy in life. And he could have chose a different path and he didn't,
yeah,
right? And it's Chinese farmer, gave him that mentality to go, I need to accept that I am where I am. This is how it's meant to be.
yeah, yeah.
You
I
know.
mean, yeah. I
So
mean,
I think,
it's yeah,
yeah, that's what I would say to your listeners and to yourselves and to anyone else. Just take 2 minutes, watch Chinese farmer, and it really will make a difference in your life.
okay. I mean, that's a
Um,
nice place to finish. Joe, did you want to just say something before we?
if you have any links or anything you'd like us to share, just if you send them to me or share them on our social media.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Hopefully one day
Yeah,
we could collaborate or something again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy to come back for a second episode on this. I got a lot more to say about mental health, and I'm sure you guys
100%.
too. So if you want to do another, in another series, you want to bring me back, then yeah, let me
Yeah.
know.
Well, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it would be brilliant. I mean, let's have you back on Series 5, Jack, because I've got pages of stuff I wrote down to ask you. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, so we'll definitely get you back on. But just for now, I just want to say thank you for your generosity
Yeah.
in
Thank you so
coming on.
much.
And it's been really great to meet you, Jack.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much. Yeah,
I
you
agree.
too.
Yeah, and once again, I'd just like to thank Jack for coming on the show and his, absolute generosity in terms of time and sharing. I hope our listeners will agree. It was a really, really interesting show, and what a nice guy. Really, really warmed to Jack. I mean, what he was saying about the tale around the kind of Chinese farmer. I mean, these. I guess that in itself was a sliding door moment. I mean, that had such a massive effect on him, and I guess came at a time when he needed it. I mean, I'm a big believer in synchronicity and sliding door moments, and and I guess lots of the things that Jack was saying kind of really pointed to that. Really interesting to hear Jack's journey with mental health in terms of his career and some of the highs and some of the lows. And I thought that was very, very interesting. And some of the shadow side, I guess, of being a celebrity. Things I could have asked more about. I could have asked more around the kind of transition for Jack into fatherhood. Jack mentioned that a few times, and hopefully we can get Jack on again in season 5, and I can ask a little bit more about that. I mean, his new projects I thought sounded really, really exciting, and also the new studio that he set up with his partner, with his friend. Really, really being open to a diverse range of performers. I thought that sounded absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and really, really nice to have Joe back on the show. It was just kind of like old times, shades of hashtag never alone. Yeah, I just hope our listeners really enjoyed that one. I just really warmed to Jack. He's such a nice guy, isn't he? And we'll definitely try and get Jack back on in series 5. We're kind of putting out the podcast at quite a quick rate this week. On Friday, I'll be interviewing Rochelle Craig, and she's going to be talking about binge eating disorder, really important topic. And that's, as I say at the end of all of the interviews, you look after yourselves, you look after each other, you look after the planet, and I'll see you on the next episode.